have made it to Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show that looks to inform, educate, and hopefully make you laugh. Stu and the Nunn is a show focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. Well, there we go, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. Let me do some tech stuff here going on. And we are August 6th, the first show in August. We are over the hump day of the year. We are past midpoint of July. Toby, how you doing, brother?
It's hard to believe that we are that far along in this year. You know, it seems like it was just yesterday, and we were not that far along. And now here we are over the hump of this year. And I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed to know that this year's almost over. There's a lot that we just want to but there's still a lot to come. We got a presidential election, allegedly.
Yeah.
We're probably going to have a couple more surges and some death. Hopefully no more explosions like what happened in Beirut.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, what a year, what a year.
That's
the old In Vogue song group from back in the 90s. What a man, what a year, what a year.
Wow, look at you taking it back there, man. That's
No, just for you, because I know you were in Alaska. You were probably looking at them on the interwebs before there were interwebs.
Back in the you're right. Back in there was no interweb. Interwebs involved the 2400 dial modem dial up at first. A lot of handshaking going on.
You were looking at them on the what's called a magazine.
Yeah, but National Geographic, baby. It's all about diversity. Hey, but it is over half over. We're past that point, and. I don't know if the next 88 days until the election is going to go slow or fast, but what I do know is it's going to fill every orifice of every body in this country with information, true or otherwise.
No, it's not.
Well, unless you tune out and go on a VO trip.
I disagree with you wholeheartedly because for that there needs to be debate, there needs to be dialogue, there needs to be interaction, and I don't think there's going to be any of that.
Well, maybe not by the candidate of the Democratic Party, but I think he has a thousands of surrogates that are going to do that. One of those being the Attorney General from the state of New York, who today tried to file a lawsuit against the NRA to disband them as an organization, which is absolutely mind-blowing that a state would do that on accusations that they've been saying for years. All of a sudden, they're doing it 88 days in front of to put the NRA at the forefront. I think we're going to continue to see things like that, right? Folks are going to, if the candidate can't get out of his basement or refuse to leave the Delaware populace. I think we're just going to see people from all hits who claim that the president will have to be pulled out kicking and screaming to, if you don't vote one way, you're a racist. I mean, we're just going to hear it all over. So I think there will be debate. It just won't be from two people, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, this is going to be probably the most historic election cycle to face not just our country. I actually think it's going to be the most interesting political event uh, to face humanity. I think this year's election, mark my words, is going to go down in history the way the Battle of Hastings in 1066 went down,
Wow.
when William the Great uh, had the battle of this little spot called Normandy. So
You took it back a
mark my
day. You
words.
took it back a minute
No, no,
there.
like mark. When you think about that, when you think of like the effect of politics and Western civilization, you think about like the Battle of Hastings, the Magna Carta, Manifest Destiny in terms of American politics. The first two were global. This is going to have a global impact because we got some things going on that are like I'm not going to use a CNN term, because I don't want to say unprecedented, because I feel like I'm at a South by Southwest where they're like, we're going to disrupt, we're going to invigorate this like all the
Yeah.
buzzwords,
Right.
but
Right. No, and what's sad is I know we got to get to our guests. I want to do that, but when we think back to the 2016 election, we thought, man, what could get more than a? I'm going to use the term here, a shit show than that. Um, than that could be. And I think, like you said, this one's even going to be more unprecedented, which is like nobody thought it could have got crazier, wilder than, remember the old Comey? Oh, we found some pictures on some emails on Wiener's laptop. Oh, no, we didn't. Oh, she's guilty. No, she's not guilty. Meeting on the tarmac, all that crazy stuff, right? To the meltdowns that happened on election night. And now we're about to go into this, which is beyond anyone's imagination 4 years ago. Nobody could have conceived what we're facing
well,
now.
we definitely have a lot to chitty chat on.
Yeah.
But before we do get with our guest, I just want to identify a couple of really cool sponsors. First and foremost, Gear for Grunts, always doing the show proud. Got a little like, what makes the green grass grow? Blood. You got a little of that on your shirt. Why is the sky blue? Because God loves the infantry.
Yep.
There it is. There it is. You got a little Mesquite Creek Outfitters on, representing. That's right. You got to represent the Mesquite Creek.
I'm trying to hit it all, man. I'm trying to get it all.
Yeah, no, like you are a team player. Meanwhile, I'm just like, I'm focused on just got
Kermode.
nothing but Kermode
Yeah.
on right now. But
Well, you know me,
Kermode
I'll be your advertising hoe if you give me free swag and gear. I mean, I'm all over it.
yeah.
So
The newest product, the special adaptive buff.
is that Fauci approved? That's,
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
you can wear that in places,
Yes,
right? You're
sir.
totally legit if you wear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're too legit to quit. But let's get with our guest
Yep.
because
We wanna get
got
him
him from
going
the
on.
other
So yeah,
side.
let me do an introduction. We have tonight on the show via our good friend Mitchell Taco Bell. We've had Taco on here a number of times, not too long ago actually. Our good, Taco's a long-term Marine aviator and a big proponent and big troop supporter, and runs a lot of the same circles Toby and I do. And he turned us on to this gentleman, Mr. Kurt Mogensen. Mogensen. Oh man, Kurt's gonna eat me up here. He's a retired lieutenant colonel, 26 years I want to say total, and worked in a number of jobs, including continuing to serve our country after he had retired in Afghanistan. I can relate to that, and has worked all over the world and deployed and done great things serving his country for 26 years. We've got a number of things we want to talk about the Marine Corps tonight, and hit on things which actually came from another Marine friend of mine who gave me the idea, who said, hey, you should hit on this, and this, and that's who we're not finding him. So Kurt, I want to welcome you to the show. Welcome to Stu and Nunn Show. Kurt, you're
hit that unmute.
Yeah. Let me unmute him. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. I got him unmuted.
There he is. I heard something.
I am now unmuted.
There we
Thanks
go.
for having me on, man.
Not a problem. I mean, So many Marine jokes I can make, but I'm not going to because you're our guest.
Let's get started.
So, no, anyways, welcome, Kurt. Thank you for coming on, buddy. Thank you for giving us some of your Thursday night.
Yeah, right on. Glad to be here, man. It's
Awesome.
a good time.
Yep, you run in good circles. So if Taco, if we're all friends of him, then we know good people. But yeah, let's. But
Yeah, I
some more.
appreciate that.
Yeah. That. Let's talk a little bit. Our listeners and viewers kind of tune in. They can't see you, everyone. Just so you know, you're not. He's not invisible. He is just on audio tonight. But just if you could kind of give them some of your kind of just background and some things you've done, and just think they get a perspective of you and your past.
Yeah, sure. So, started off in the reserves as a cannoneer. Got commissioned. Went active duty, got commissioned. Stayed in artillery. Did all the company grade billets, forward observer, liaison, battery commander. Spent 3 tours out of the 11th Marines. Security forces in Bahrain. Did his warfare school, hit all the standard billets, recruiting duty. So after all that, went back to the fleet and got caught up, did a MIT team in Ramadi. that was a good time. Living with the Iraqi army. It was good work. A lot of good work done there.
Yeah.
And then got a rare opportunity as an artillery guy. Got assigned as the executive officer to Regimental Combat Team 1, which doesn't happen, right? Our Arty guys are not infantry regiment XOs, but I got to spend some time. At that time, Colonel Kraparatis, he is a great guy, hard dude, definitely a warrior. It was one of my highlight experiences, really, working for him in Fallujah. Left there. Went back to the division for a while as a regimental operations officer. But my final tour was at Headquarters Marine Corps Combat Development, where I was the artillery capabilities officer. So I had the entire Marine Corps portfolio for munitions, artillery munitions, HIMARS, cannons, and at the time, the Expeditionary Fire Support System and doctrine. So,
you were red leg. You were red leg through and through.
Through and through.
Yeah.
Loved it. I love the big boom, and really, love supporting the infantry, man. That was, and I think where we're going tonight in tonight's conversation. I mean, Arty's world is all about supporting the grunt, and it's a great job. Being there at Quantico, though, I found out how the Marine Corps works. I found out how manning and systems and modeling, which maybe we'll get into a little bit later, but all that was done there was a great experience at Headquarters Marine Corps. Probably the best learning experience about the Marine Corps, and transitioned me well into contracting jobs, being the portfolio manager for artillery. So, I mean, that's a multi-billion-dollar program, right?
Yep.
Multi-billion. Arty is one of the biggest portfolios in the ground combat element. And then I'll stop. But I was also the maneuver branch head for the ground combat element while I was there for a year. So I had tanks, so I knew a lot of what was going on with tanks. And I had, the reconnaissance element, the infantry element, had it all under the maneuver branch, and ran the artillery at the same time.
Yeah.
And during that time, we were also doing the force structure drawdown from, at the time it was 210,000. We were drawing that down to like 186. So well-versed in the manpower analysis of capabilities. What do we need to fight? All the modeling, all the manpower, and the tasks associated to meet the medals for the warriors.
Nice. Now you well-rounded. I mean, you definitely you demonstrate. I mean, you were in the line. You did, or in the gun bunny line, I guess you could say. You were out there at the battery all the way up, and seeing how the force operates, plans, resources, trains, all that kind of stuff. So, awesome. I think you're going to give us some good perspective tonight because you bring a lot of well-rounded background. But interesting enough, we may have it's funny. Toby and I, being both retired senior NCOs from the infantry, both different careers, but in the same area. A lot of times we find ourselves interconnecting with. In fact, the other day a couple weeks ago we had a guest on that Toby and him both went to high school roughly in the same area, Anchorage, Alaska, where I was stationed at the same time. So we always find these one or two connection points. So two come up with between me and yourself. One, you're artillery the whole time. I was 11 Charlie mortar guy for most of my career. So, I worked constantly with forward FOs and fisters and, fire direction centers and, everything going along with, indirect fire and all that kind of stuff. So I can definitely relate. I kind of filled that gap here before we had to reach out to the big guns, right? They'd call on the mortars. The other one is
81's up, right?
Yeah, 81, 60s, 4 deuce, 120s, yeah, all of them. The other thing is you mentioned you were a MIT team member. Was that in 07?
Yes, yeah. So was attached with 2-5, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines out of Camp Pendleton, and we were actually under Colonel Charleston. It was 1st Stryker Brigade.
Okay.
Was the brigade we got assigned to. So there were 2 Marine battalions that got attached to the Army Brigade in Ramadi at that time. And then I had one of the Iraqi battalions in that brigade.
So Toby, I know, is going, Toby was a Stryker guy too. So I'll let him get into that.
Well, I know they like to call it the 1st Stryker Brigade, but they're not the 1st Stryker Brigade. They're the 1st Brigade that were strikers.
I stand corrected. 1st Brigade, Colonel Charleston. So,
he's good. No, great people. Great people.
Strikers are near and dear to his heart. But the reason I bring that up,
I was in the 1st
Stryker
Brigade.
he was. Yes.
It's kind of like the Ohio State University.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you get it. I
want to real quick, Toby, before we go. I want to hit on one thing. I had 2 soldiers. One I lost, and one that served in MIT teams in Ramadi in 06, 07. And there's a chance you may have served with one of my senior NCOs who went over there as a MIT team member. But I lost a young soldier in February of 06 or March of 06. But the senior NCO stayed. They were both augmentees and built up this MIT team member. So we had maybe a chat about that later. But you and him may have actually served together, or definitely in the same neck of the woods. But yeah, got my attention there. So go ahead, Toby. Sorry.
So the reason we have our man on tonight is because, sadly, unfortunately, tragically, the Corps has been in the news here recently. Repetitively on a couple of different things, and so the landscape of the military is a constant evolution, right? So as soil and foundation erodes from one, it builds to the foundation of the other, but some major landmark changes have happened. And like you said earlier, when you're talking about your bio, you spent a lot of time dealing with maneuver, and so the Marine Corps is changing its policy on armored assets, and wanted to kind of get an old school mentality, because we know most Marines fear change, and so let's hear where you're coming from on that, and then let's kind of walk through what that means in terms of the value of the force, the lethality of the force, as well as the speed and the maneuverability of it.
Okay. Yeah, right on. So, we just get down to I heard people at Tober Times, even 10 years ago at Quantico, people talking about, there's never going to be another major tank battle again. We've had them. That's ridiculous. There's always going to be armor battles. When are you not going to face armor? All of your opponents are near peers, right? What a great term. Near peer have a massive armor capability, the Chinese, right? And the Chinese are developing what? Power projection. They're figuring out how to do what we do, moving their combat power forward. And what are they going to bring? Armor. And we're gonna roll up and dust the Abrams and send it out to Barstow. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna have the grunts do what? Pick up javelins and take on Chinese armor? I think it's a grave mistake. And I mean, in our lifetimes, we've seen 2, if not 3, major tank battles. Right? Just in our lifetime. I mean, armor has been on the battlefield since its conception. It's not going away. And I think for the Marine Corps...
Are you talking just American, right? We've seen 2 solid American armored battles.
Solid,
but we've probably
massive.
witnessed in our lifetime 4 or 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
right?
Yeah.
And there will be more.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's, when you do the modeling to design the force you want, you can set the model of the force you want to fight. It's like statistics. You set the force you want to fight, and what's it going to give you? It's going to spit out the data that says, hey, your force should look like this. Yeah, you don't need armor. If you're not facing armor, you don't need armor. If you're... so I think the tank going away...
You don't need a gun in a knife fight, but it's sure nice to have
one.
Right.
Right. Yeah, because hopefully you can shoot them at 22 feet before they break that 21-foot rule or whatever it is today. But yeah. So you have armor, but you've got to have an anti-armor capability. It's not just armor, but how did the Marine Corps employ armor? They employed armor at the platoon level, platoon of tanks supporting small units, generally. And you have now, again, taken away a warfighting function that the Marine Corps has embraced for decades for the infantry battalion.
It's a combat multiplier for the infantry, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean,
and now you've taken that away. And you're gonna counter that with grit, right? We've got grit. So we're gonna counter armor with grit. But I'll try to keep my sarcasm down, but no, I think
send it.
I think it's wrong to take the armor away because here's the deal: the Abrams tank is still practically unmatched, right? You own them outright. We're not buying tanks. The Marine Corps owns some 450 plus Abrams tanks. We don't have a POM budget in the Department of Defense to procure tanks. It's an investment that is purchased and owned. So all you're buying then is a logistics, munitions, maintenance support line to operate that. Vastly cheap compared to procurement of a new system. I don't know how they're going to replace it. How are you going to compensate for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're drilling down to what we really want to get to, and this seems like this is a financially based decision, right? Does not seem that it's a tactically based decision, because I'm sure if you asked Hannibal or Alexander the Great when they were dealing with the Hindu Kush, they sure wish they had some elephants.
Right.
Armor has a place on the battlefield, and I'm not saying this out of tradition. I'm saying it out of lethality. I'm saying it out when you look at cavalry. The bigger the horse, there's a reason why Clydesdales, are a breed that's still around today. It's really interesting that this financially based decision's happening, and it's happening to such a crucial thing. And again, like, this is politics, right? We're talking about how do we make a force either the most productive, the most efficient, and the most lethal. And obviously, this decision was not an overnight decision. This is a decision that's probably been in the works for a minute. And that's why, like, it's curious why the Marines specifically are dropping it. Now, when we look at expeditionary opportunity, the Marines are supposed to be quicker. Do you think that this was, pardon the pun, the heaviest weight to cut, the easiest weight to drown? Like the ship, right? The ship's going down. So to like lighten the ship, you're like, what's the heaviest thing? Treasure goes first.
Yeah, so I think across the board, the Marine Corps has been slow and clunky for a long time, right? I mean, we've up-armored everything. And, when you embark on a ship, the ship now waits out before it cubes out, meaning because of the weight of the equipment, you can't put as much equipment on because of the weight. But the MEUs, the Marine Expeditionary Units, still continue to go out. They still continue to take tanks. They still continue to take LAVs. And now we're going to remove those assets, those fast, heavy firepower mobile assets. And I just don't understand. So when we talk about the weight of the Corps, there are so many other areas where you can lighten. We had the lighten the load working groups, but nobody wanted, the senior leadership at the time, nobody wanted to take the risk if we reduce the armor because of the effect of the IED on the battlefield, right? Well, how do you, avoid the IED, get off the road, maneuver around it? And there were options. Yes, they cost money, but when you're developing capability, you don't worry about the cost. You worry about the capability and the requirement first, and then figure out the cost later. But when you remove tanks and then you remove artillery, and for me, the real question is the infantry really satisfied that they are no longer going to have a final protective fires? They're no longer going to have coordinated illumination at night. They're no longer going to at the end of it, 81s are not going to give you the coordinated illumination you need to fight the fight. They're not going to give you the infrared illumination at night. They're not going to give you the final protective fires that artillery battery gives you.
Not with anything bigger than a platoon element.
All those things are going away.
Yeah.
There's a reason why it's called the King of Battle.
Right. It's
and now there's the average grunt. Is the average grunt that stands there and says, "Yeah, I'm good with Artie not being behind me." I kind of don't think so.
I haven't met that guy.
No.
Yeah, I haven't met that guy either. High Mars is fabulous. It is. However, it's not a close-in fire support system. It's just not.
Yeah,
it doesn't give you the other mission capabilities that cannons do.
It's as much as a multiplier for the grunt Marine as it is the light amphibious tanks are for the paratroopers in 82nd, right? Everyone always, I remember when I was in, people were like, why does the 82nd have tanks? Right, they were small, light, air droppable, but they gave the rapid deploying airborne division some kind of armor, there was nothing. They weren't going to drop APCs in there. They weren't going to drop Bradleys or anything. At least they had this that had a smaller barrel and all that kind of stuff, but it gave them something until the big boys arrived. And I don't know how, and maybe you could educate us. I'm assuming that on the MEUs and stuff like that, on the ships, they must have had a couple M1s, just something to be part of the rapid deployment force, but it gave them something to, if nothing else, you go back and watch Fury, go back and watch any of the World War II movies, even the funny ones like Telly Savalas and all that, right? That those guys were crouched down and using that as a big shield, but at least it was letting them get close into the fight. That was the whole purpose of it. It seems like
we went out on the MEUs. The MEUs would have a platoon of tanks. They have 4 tanks. They have 4 to 6 LAVs.
Right.
Um,
And
to
LAVs
support the
obviously,
battalion.
like an LAV like a Bradley can only take so much. It doesn't have the armor and all that the big the tank has, but it gives them something. But the tank, hey, we saw it in Fallujah, right? You need a breach, you don't even worry about putting a charge in that door. You just put a 120 through that and probably breached
Right.
the whole house. But either way, he still breached it.
City
It is brief.
block.
You know,
All good.
that's right.
Yeah. It was a clear hole.
Yes, through a
It
couple,
was a clear hole.
sometimes through a couple houses, depending on if they were heat or Sabo.
Yeah.
But
Sabo was definitely like a clear hole.
yeah,
I think we'd have a different discussion if the Marine Corps was looking for a tank replacement that would cost billions upon billions of dollars. And that's not the case. The other thing with taking the tank away is once you put the tank in mothballs, right, and you dissolve the unit, it's a decade. It's a decade to bring that tank back online. You can't just snap your fingers and say, let's bring the tanks back. You got to reestablish the schoolhouse. You got to find people that are trained. You got to find the technician.
the maintenance, the acquisition, all that kind of stuff.
You can't just pull them out and put them into service. That will take years and years. And you know what that is? That's contractors. That's people coming out of retirement or previous service. And what does that cost? Right? So this, we'll see in time. Is the Marine Corps, because so the Commandant is quickly rolling the tanks up first, right? I mean, we just saw that. He's got to do this very rapidly on his watch because once his 4-year term is over, the next guy can shut it down. So he is going to expedite his decisions as rapidly as possible, and he's showing that right now by rolling up the guidon.
Is this a financially driven decision? Is this completely for finance for based on money? Or is it image?
I would say it is. I mean, he's saying it's based upon a model to fight the Chinese, but I don't know how you fight the Chinese without armor and artillery.
Yeah. That doesn't pass the smell test. Yeah.
No.
Now, like you touched on something that I kind of want to, circle back to really fast. Like we joked earlier about strikers, but I was a member of the very first striker unit, the very first striker brigade combat team, and like we rushed to get. We did our training. We knew the vehicles were coming, but we did our training on labs that we borrowed from the Canadian Army. Why we didn't borrow labs from the Marine Corps, I don't know, but I guess we just wanted to like pay homage to my people. But we rolled out and engaged that vehicle, that weapon system, that platform, and so fast. I mean, when I say fast, we're talking a very short period of time, only a couple of years from concept design to implementation, that we didn't even have mechanics. When we went to combat, we didn't even actually have mechanics to work on the vehicle. Now we had light wheeled mechanics, we had heavy mechanics, we had track mechanics, we had turret mechanics, but that was really out the window when it came to the striker. Because we didn't have turrets, we had a remote weapon system. We weren't light wheeled because we're a medium heavy, multi-axle vehicle. While some of the, fundamentals kind of went, hand in hand with the light wheeled mechanic, for the most part, our heavy lifting in terms of like our mechanical work was done by contractors that were civilians based on the manufacturer. So imagine that guy that got the call that he was getting a TDY trip and then realized like it was to a foreign land, to be on the front lines of combat, to make sure that this new, bright, shiny new toy, stayed operational. Like, those are all the little things that are tough when it comes to wheeling out a new program. But outside of the striker,
that contractor costs to put, what it costs to put that contractor in theater in a danger zone? Government's paying $400,000 to $500,000 per guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With logistics and everything else.
That contractor's probably getting $250,000, $300,000. The company that puts him there is probably making another $150,000, $200,000 on top of that. So every guy.
Then the insurance.
So 2 contractors is $1 million.
Yeah.
That's absurd, right? To
Yeah.
when you give away.
I think you're undervaluing it. I think it's closer to like $1 million a person per 6-month rotation.
And Kurt, you were in Afghanistan as a contractor. I was too. I mean, you go to Bagram or even Kandahar, but especially Bagram, right? It was like, are there any soldiers here? it was all contractors.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Kabul. So I was on the Department of State side, right?
Okay.
So I wasn't over on Resolute Support. So there's only like 350, 400 Department of State employees. There were 7,000 contractors.
Yeah.
For
it's a small town.
400. Yeah, it's in there were like 2 cities, really, three or 4 camps, but really 2. The airfield, you got the airfield, and then you got Kabul, the embassy, the grounds there. But basically 7,000 contractors. That's $1 billion a year embassy, and you're not leaving the wire, man. So they're getting paid less. When you leave the wire, you're going to get a lot more. But yeah, I mean, so that cost is being washed over. The cost is being washed over, which is ridiculous as well. But again, I think, for me, at the end of the day, the tanks are bought and owned. We own them. We're not buying them. We're maintaining them, and we're improving systems that exist on them, or some other things. Maybe, I mean, the most expensive thing I could foresee would be developing a new projectile a new munition for the tank. But the Marine Corps doesn't do that. The Army does that.
Right.
The Marine Corps buys into that. The Army is always the lead in that.
And the commandant's and the commandant's statement, right, is he's expecting the Army to provide that heavy ground armor capability, right? He says that.
Yeah. So we'll do a memorandum of agreement, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
hey, can you loan me?
I'm familiar with that memorandum of agreement as rounds pinged off my vehicle going into Kadam.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Hey,
just to bring everyone else real quick, it's not just tanks we're talking about, right? Divestment of 3 infantry battalions, right? Divestment of 3 heavy helicopter squadrons, 3 medium lift tilt rotor squadrons, which are Ospreys, right? 2 light attack helicopter squadrons. We're talking about, a number of things.
It's a massive downsize.
Yeah, 3 bridging companies. I mean, is there no rivers in China? I mean, they might need some bridges. I don't know, but it's a lot.
Yeah, and the engineer drawdown as well. So
yeah.
With the Marine Corps, I'm not quite sure how the Army does it, but when we would say the Marine Air Ground Task Force, right? So the Marine Infantry Battalion, in and of by itself, a straight leg battalion can't do much. What makes an infantry battalion? Yes, they can. So I don't piss off all the earth pigs out there tonight, but the infantry battalion's combat power is all of the attachments, the engineers, the tanks, the tows. Yes, tows are organic, but you can get additional tows. There's the artillery battery, truck platoon, right? You start all the attachments that go to the infantry battalion. How many attachable units are now been removed? Engineers, tanks, artillery.
That's half the.
So now we have I would almost say a Ranger-like. And I'm not taking away from the Rangers, but you've taken a organization that's designed to win battles, and now you have severely limited and restricted its warfighting capability.
Yeah, I mean, you made them almost. What do tankers call infantry guys? Crunchies. I mean, you're taking them that. You're making them cannon fodder. I mean, no multipliers. You're taking away their multipliers and enablers. I mean, F-35 is not going to be an enabler for infantry ground. I mean, if he gets one, it's going to be awesome, and they're gonna video it on their phones when it flies over. But otherwise, that's not what's going to help them, right? It's going to be artillery. It's going to be tanks.
The other thing that's not mentioned in the news with these articles is what the Air Force is doing, and with the number of tankers that are being pulled down too. So guess what happens? Cast time on station goes away. Gets severely reduced because the number of tankers aren't available.
Yeah, those gas stations aren't flying
around. Now you don't have gas stations, right?
Yeah.
You don't have gas stations for the fighters to go to hang on station to provide that close support. That's another piece that is being diminished.
Do you know or think did the commandant coordinate is it known if he's talked to the Army? Did he talk to General McConville or any of the folks in the Army about, hey, we're going to downsize this. Can you guys step in and fill that gap? Or do you think it's all based off assumption?
I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting to know.
But I doubt that. I mean, some of those, service level agreements. I mean, because what with the Marine Corps changing is going to affect what the Army does. I mean, it is. And then can the Army provide it? I mean, it's one thing to say, yes, we can provide that, but then at the end of the day, let's put numbers against numbers and operational cycles against operational cycles. Can you provide the units to support the Marine Corps needs events? I don't know.
Yeah. Toby, do you have something?
Well, I was just going to take a side diversion because in it looks like our Facebook chat room, we got a great devil dog named Scott Wall, a personal friend of mine, and he is dropping some names. And so, we typically don't do this, but since we got you on, we figured you ask, because it's anytime, I'm Canadian, someone's like, hey, do you know Steve, from Alberta? I'm like, hey, let me find out. But my boy Scott Wall, he's a 1371, great Marine, great friend of mine, great supporter of Veteran Outdoors, great dude. He's asking if you were in the 11th Marines at the same time as a Sergeant Major Xavier Hines, or a non-commissioned officer named High Horse Little.
Yes.
There you go, Scott.
I believe for both.
Okay.
Affirmative.
I mean, and the last name of Xavier seems like it would stand out. That's not Jones.
Yeah, no, Hines. I think.
Hines, yes. I remember Hines.
Yeah. And High Horse Little. I mean, High Horse. I'm assuming.
You better get off of it.
Yeah. Probably Native American, but also a name that kind of stands out.
So when I was in 11th Marines, I mean, my greatest run was with Colonel Lesenwitz, and he was out there. I mean, that guy's a warrior of warriors. He took 3rd Battalion, 11th Marines into Mogadishu as an infantry battalion. I mean, he was a Vietnam.
Yeah, they were glad they had tanks then.
Yep.
Just
right. Just saying. So, small skirmishes, armor matters, right?
Yeah. We have another question, actually from Rob, our unpaid producer. We have a question there asking, why do the Marines artillery and Army artillery not do more combined support together? Do you know? I mean, obviously you probably went through Fort Sill. You've worked with Army artillery guys yourself. Do you know why they don't do more together? Or do more combined support?
Probably just because of the last, for the war, Marine battalion, because we deployed by battalions primarily and augmented. And, we would do Mojave Viper at the time was the big infantry battalion, pre-deployment exercise. Barstow's up the road and Irwin's there, but the training cycles just never lined up. We tried to do integration of rockets. Before the Marine Corps bought rockets, we did integration. The Army would provide launcher units to support Marine events.
Courteous.
We did. The Marine Expeditionary Force, 1 MEF, had agreements with the Army to provide, the Army would provide rockets for the MEF fight. And when we got, sometimes we would get Army units to provide 120 for events. But really everything occurs at Fort Sill, and that's the schoolhouse, that's the ground.
Right.
Training, the integration of Army officers and Marine officers going to school together, and then that's kind of it.
That's where they separate from there. They kind of they don't really come back together much. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really I never participated in any joint exercises. I mean, if we did anything big, it's more likely with the Navy. You go to Hawaii to do some pack operation, right?
Yeah. Let's see.
Now, I
Fort
don't know about
Sill.
Korea. I never went to Korea, so I don't know what the integration with the Marine Corps and the Army is in Korea, though.
Yeah, I didn't.
Very little.
Yeah, none at all.
Very
Really.
little.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to pick
Okay.
between Hawaii and Fort Sill, I think I'd leave the Dust Bowl behind and be like, "Yep, we going out to Hawaii." But hey,
Why?
yeah,
Why?
we go hang out with Army guys at Fort Sill, our Marine brothers in Hawaii. Like, when's the bird leave? Yeah. So I want to kind of hit on something I want to ask about. I know we've had you on for a little while. Is this, recently we've had this horrible accident,
Yeah.
out in California with this Amtrak, I guess AAV, right? Is that the right acronym? The AAV?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Going under, they just found it. I guess I saw this morning or last night. They just found it, and they're working on getting the assets out there to recover it. But, I just, I've had a couple of Marine buddies. I was talking with some today that just, hated being in that thing. They said they always felt like it was a rolling coffin. It was, there's been a lot of controversy over how well it was designed, why it was still being used, what its effectiveness were, which are actually some of the same controversies over the Bradley when it came out, because the Bradley wasn't, it had its own issues with it, being amphibious, and you had to stop and put up a skirt, and it was, moved slow, and it had all these design issues. But on this, two things. One, the AAV as a design, as a vehicle. I know the Marines have been trying to get it replaced. That's been talking about it for years. But two, I kind of like to hit on with you is just, a reminder to our listeners and viewers and the American people that just because you're not in combat does not mean you're not taking risks. And just what your thoughts are on that and how the Marines try to mitigate that, but how things still happen.
Yeah, first, condolences to all the families that lost their Marines. Horrible tragedy, and really unfortunate. I mean, it's beyond unfortunate. First thing I would say is, as you guys know, as every Marine and soldier knows, and every airman and sailor knows, training is always dangerous. It's always dangerous. I mean, we do a really good job across the board mitigating the risk, and we do that through comprehensive live fire training, and that's why we're so successful on the battlefield. But accidents happen, and I'm not dismissing anything. And usually, human error, equipment error, munition and problem. I mean, you can never mitigate everything, and there's always a risk. But if people do the right things generally across the board, drill everything down to their chalk talks, their dry runs, the rehearsals, all the coordination. I mean, we go to the field and we shoot tens of thousands of rounds without incident. We do live fire maneuver all the time without incident.
Yeah, we jump out of planes. We do, all kind of stuff.
Tens of thousands of soldiers jump from aircraft. And, there's always some injuries, but fatalities are really minimized. The services do a really good job across the board of mitigating the dangers. My frustration with the AAV is the Marine Corps has spent, $3 to $4 billion.
With a B.
And you can't come up with with a B, billion. And you cannot come up with a replacement vehicle that was designed in the late 60s. Are you kidding me? You can't. You have failed at every level to replace this vehicle. Yet we continue to extend the service. The vehicle needs to be retired. So I'll go back. So when I was at Quantico, the requirements, documents were staffed about the new AAV. Who was the one-star general officer at plans, policy, and operations at the time that had a direct impact on the Marine Corps' ability to drive a new AAV? Berger.
The commandant, for everyone listening. Right?
Yeah. Commandant was there. Program replacement shuttered. Billions of dollars. So there's a lot of responsibility to be accounted for, I believe, within the Marine Corps leadership. over the past decade plus, how is it that you continue to extend the life of this vehicle that you know is aging and you cannot come up with a replacement? That's unfathomable to me. As much money has been spent and the technology that's available. I mean, part of the problem was everybody wanted every whiz-bang system you could load up on an AAV. It went from 15 packs down to 8 packs. Now we're going to come up with an 8-pack replacement vehicle, that 8 passengers. But now we're breaking up the infantry squad. The core of the Marine Corps' warfighting dominance on the battlefield is around the infantry squad, the organization of the infantry squad. Now we're going to break it up into 2 vehicles.
Yeah.
Again, ridiculous, right?
They haven't learned from the Army's.
We don't have a connector vehicle.
Yeah, they haven't learned from the Army's fiasco with the Bradley, obviously, right? Because it went along the
know
same
what?
thing.
When you go to Quantico, you go see the videos. You get the lecture about the challenges when the Bradley came online, the corruption with the program and all the problems that the vehicle had. And here we go. We still haven't learned. But
Right.
I just can't believe we can manufacture anything in America, right? We can.
Maybe we need to get.
close.
Maybe we need to get.
Replacement.
I think they need to reach out to Elon Musk. I think they could.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Right?
that's where it seems to be. It may be a Tesla, but it'll be the baddest ass looking Tesla that ever rolled. But I mean, obviously,
You know?
he's revolutionarizing. I can't even say it. Space travel. I wonder what he could do with finding a replacement for this. And I say that half facetiously, but kind of half serious. Like, you know,
Well, half seriously, we got to get out of it. We got to get out of the
defense contractor world.
defense contract that we can do it internally, right?
Yeah.
Why the government just doesn't open source? Hey, build a vehicle that does the following.
Yeah.
You know, and bring it. Marine Corps needs a connector vehicle to get from ship to shore, but that vehicle doesn't need to be able to do everything. It needs to get troops ashore.
Right.
To fight. And we spent billions with nothing. And yet we're still going to drop these things off the ship, and we're going to lose 8 Marines with a 35-year-old AAV.
Yeah.
No, it's a horrible tragedy, but I think it's indicative of the system that we've created. Because halfway through the Iraq War, we brought back a vehicle from Vietnam. Back in the day, the wartime experience followed the mindset that necessity is the mother of invention. We created aircraft. We created boats that aircraft could land on and off of. We figured out how to get aircraft further ranged by in-flight refueling. We created
A big bomb that's ended a war.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the vehicles that came out from tactical applications, helicopters, we've been at war longer than our country's ever been at war. And I feel like we're not going forward in design. We're like reaching back into time and trying to figure out how utilize something that might work, because we really don't want to put the time and effort into building something better. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, and when I say a couple, I mean a decade, we were all about the Comanche because we were already going to replace the Apache. So we were going to do the Comanche. And now what we ended up getting was the Lakota, and like a fraction of the capabilities. And all the Lakota is an existing product that was on the market that they just made a variation of. So it's kind of sad that, again, we let these young men go into that vehicle, and like, what happened to G.I. Joe, right? I used to like look at G.I. Joe toys and realize, like, at some point in time, like, this fantasy vehicle is going to end up being like a reality, with the exception of like the Cobra helicopter. But like, I remember when G.I. Joe came out with this badass hovercraft, it was like, oh man, the world's going to have this badass hovercraft. That sounds like an amphibious assault vehicle.
And it
You know,
is.
in the commandant's
Just
guidance, he made comments to the effect of, we cannot rely upon legacy programs. So we're gonna get rid of two legacy. We're gonna get rid of the Abrams legacy, and we're gonna get rid of our accelerated legacy. But we're gonna keep the oldest vehicle.
Right.
You're gonna close two programs, but you're gonna continue to use the oldest one, extend it, and justify the extension of it.
Well, you know, the Marines have always had to live off. They've always been. I mean, the living on the poor side of the block when it comes to military. I remember when, you know, Army well had M1s, right? Where did all the M60s go? Marines were still rolling M60s in Desert Storm.
Yeah.
Right? You know, I was there.
Right?
We were getting M1A1 roll blocks rolling in, and M2A2 and M3A or M2 and M3A1s rolling in, doing a swap in theater, and the Marines were rolling M60s. I mean, you know, Marines were having M16A1s and you know, and stuff, and the big long Albatross, while the Army's rolling, you know, small ACH helmets and M4s, and the Marines are just like, no, we got this big ass Kevlar and this big old long rifle. You know, they've always been on the poor end. Like you said, they're not having to go out. I mean, the Army will gladly give older M1s to them. They would gladly give them anything, you know, they don't want or need.
Well, you know, when we expanded HIMARS in the Marine Corps, we did a weapon swap with the Army. We traded cannons for rockets. That's what we did.
Right.
We downsized artillery. We got rid of 30 tubes. We basically gave the tubes to the Army. In exchange, we acquired vehicles.
Right.
We could send them to was it Letterkenny or wherever to get them refitted.
Letterkenny?
Make HIMARS out of them.
I heard Letterkenny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I forget whatever it is.
Tobyhanna? I think you mean Tobyhanna. I mean, Letterkenny would be cool.
Not Tobyhanna. It's not Tobyhanna, but where they rebuild where the Army rebuilds depot maintenance, and they rebuild rockets, launchers, and vehicles. So the vehicles get refitted, but we did a weapons exchange. That was simple, no cost to anybody, right?
Right.
Everything's already procured and paid for. It's a pretty simple swap. All it was paperwork, man.
Yeah.
All it was paperwork.
Well, Kurt, I hate to. I mean, I know we've had you on for a while tonight. Really appreciate your time. Is there anything you want to let our listeners? We don't. I mean, obviously, we didn't get a chance to talk much beforehand. I don't know. You know what? We don't know what. You know, are you? If there's anything you're involved with, anything you want to make, we like Taco. We know he's involved in a lot of stuff, and we usually have him on. We want to give you a chance. If there's anything you want to either promote or let people know about, or if there's any departing words you just want to make sure that our listeners and viewers, you know, take to heart from your perspective and your observations in this world.
You know, it's really, you know, if you know somebody out there that needs help, a vet that's down, you can give him a hand up, her a hand up. You know, I know veteran suicide is always a topic. You know, folks could just be available for a phone call, just to meet for a beer and just hear somebody out, give them a hand up, help a vet out. That's all. You know, it's really
okay.
I think super important. Got folks come home. We don't do a good job transitioning people after all this time. Everybody can just say, take a few minutes to listen to somebody. That'd be great.
Yeah, just give them an ear. Sometimes that's all people need, right? They just need to be able to talk it out.
Yep.
And maybe not even necessarily need an answer or solution. They just need to release the hate and just talk it out, and that helps right there. So
yeah.
Good. Well, hey, thank you so much, Kurt. We appreciate it. I know we got you on short notice. Your perspective is very unique. I mean, like I said at the start, you've experienced a lot in the Marine Corps. You've seen and done a lot, and it's not something someone always will think about. I mean, you've got that perspective on whether it's from systems and supply to tactics and all that, and just how our forces are being used. So I want to really thank you for coming on and joining us, giving us some of your Thursday night.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, guys. Appreciate it. You guys be safe, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, sir. And you have a rest of your great evening.
You too. All right,
Okay.
thanks. Out here.
All right. See you later. Bye bye. All right, everybody. There we go. And there we go. Boom. Look at that. Oh, I'm getting the video down, Toby. I immediately can snap back and bring you right back into. I'm figuring this out here. It's only taken us 214 episodes. So, everybody. Oh, the Kurt Mogensen. I didn't even ask him how to spell his name. I guess it's a good thing I didn't. But thank him so much for coming on. Some good perspective. I mean, that accident was horrible, and I guess I bet a lot of people, Toby, didn't realize how old that vehicle is, and kind of
No, it's
up there.
the
Oh, you frozen on me? I got frozen, Toby. Uh-oh. We'll wait for him to break free here.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now I got you. Yeah. What were you saying? I got lots of frozen Toby going on. Why are you frozen, my friend? There we go.
You got me now?
Yep. Yeah, I got you.
All right. You missed me singing Ariana Grande, Break Free.
Oh, I was waiting on that too. It was my whole thing of the night. I wanted to see that. Okay. Why are you still... why are you frozen again, dude? Jeez. All right. I don't know what's going on. We wanted to chat here a little bit on a couple more topics, but we may be having an issue here on being able to do that. Toby looks like he is totally locked up here. Okay. All right. Well, with that, I don't know what else Toby wanted to hit on a couple topics. I'm just going to keep him there frozen looking funny, and he's gone. So let me get rid of Toby's video there so it gets rid of mine. There we go. All right. With that, everyone, he just lost power. All right. So that would be a good reason why. But that's not good. Hopefully it's not for a bad story. Everyone, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Just keep in mind that, as Kurt kind of said, it is all of our forces, our military, and tries to train as realistically as possible. If you've been in the military, if anything, there's almost too much safety in some of the things that they do in the military. Sometimes they make it so safe or try to make it so risk adverse that they make it more dangerous. But for the most part, 99% of the time that the control measures have been in place, the mitigations are for a reason. But the reality is, it's dangerous. It is, there are risks. I told my soldiers before they deployed, I told my NCOs in 2006, or 2004, no matter how much you train your men, no matter how much you drill it into them and all that stuff, you throw enough bullets in the air, someone's going to get hit, right? And that's exactly what happened. And, we don't know what happened yet on this AAV accident, just like we don't know what happened when a plane has an issue and someone has to eject or anything else. And we're not going to try to speculate, but, it could be equipment failure. It could be someone had to make a split decision and made a wrong one. But, things happen. It's a shame. It's horrible, because you want to think that, especially if it's your loved one, that the military you even trusted them to is going to keep them safe. But things happen, and sometimes, and we learn from those mistakes. So we'll just have to see what happens. But just keep in mind that just because our soldiers and our Marines and airmen and sailors are not deployed, or maybe if you don't think they're deployed, does not mean that everything's hunky-dory and just working fine. They're still out there, as Kurt talked about, throwing rounds down range. They're still jumping out of planes. They're still flying in helicopters, or they're still backing up trucks. No matter what it is they do, that things can happen. So, hopefully you, like our family, keep our soldiers. And when I say this, I'm not giving lip service. Every meal prayer, we ask God to protect our soldiers deployed everywhere. That happens religiously at every time we do our blessing for our meal. And I hope whether you do it then or do it whenever, if you do it when you lay your head down on your pillow at night, that you take a moment and ask that they are all have God's arms wrapped around them and protect them, so that they can go on to do another day and hopefully return to their families one day, or whenever they're doing even for the end of the day. So with that being said, I want to let you all go. Thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday night. Toby is without power. I guess I should not turn on the goodbye yet. Toby's without power, so hope he gets through all that fine. We will not. We will be here next week. We'll be here next week. It's a week after, we won't. So we will be here next week. We got some great topics for you. Toby had some things he wanted to cover tonight, but we'll talk about it next week. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe week. Hope you're staying safe. You're doing all the right things, but you're also enjoying all your liberties and freedoms. So with that being said, I bid you good night. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.